problem is that if you're the Democratic Party and you lost 49.8% to 48.3%, and you're looking at that 1.5% dip, that's an excuse for you to say, what we did really wasn't that bad.
Some people, they'll ask you a double negative question, and then they'll ask you a single negative question, and then they'll ask you, I swear there was almost like triple negative questions in there as well.
Trump's only been in office for 6 weeks. Seems like 6 years, doesn't it? And he's been going around with his cronies touting his so-called landslide and blowout win. But he won the popular vote by 1.5%, one of the smallest ever, and he won the general election by less than 50%. So what kind of mandate is this really?
Well, it is a mandate, and I'm going to explain why. And I don't mind the question, but let me be very clear. I'm no supporter of Trump. I'm a supporter of truth and the facts. And here's the facts. The man won every swing state. He increased in terms of his voter turnout in his favor from the standpoint of blacks, Latinos, and young voters. He increased his numbers in that regard from 2020. 89% of the counties shifted to the right. That's a mandate. We can sit up there and play around all we want to. In 2020, Trump didn't win the popular vote. He didn't win the electoral college vote. A matter of fact, the Republicans hadn't won the popular vote, if I remember correctly, since 2004. But they did this year. So 20 years after they last won the popular vote, they won the popular vote. They won the electoral college vote. The man won every swing state. And on top of it all, 89% of the counties shifted gears. I don't understand how people can look at that and say, there's no mandate. There's a mandate.
Well, it's a different definition of a mandate, I guess.
But the problem is that if you're the Democratic Party and you lost 49.8% to 48.3%, and you're looking at that 1.5% dip, that's an excuse for you to say, what we did really wasn't that bad.
Some people didn't
we should continue to do that.
Do you
no,
think that those,
don't continue to do that. Find a new strategy.
But do you think those
they're not
groups...
going to think they're wrong. They're just going to keep, they just keep doing the same thing. Like, oh no, it was really close. We don't need to do what we're doing is working. It now it's the American people. They're what's wrong.
Right. Yeah, it's the same strategy. It's the same mistakes over and over again. It's just that this time people are actually catching on and they're changing their opinion about it. It's the only difference.
Like you said, he gained ground in all the demographics except for what, white women. Was that the one thing where he?
I think that was the case in 2020. In 2024, I think he even gained more in that support in that demographic as well. I could be wrong about that, but I believe in 2024 it was every demographic minus maybe one or two that are much smaller minorities. But yeah.
Well, if we're not suggesting that there was fraud or anything like that, if everything was on the up and up, then yeah, essentially a mandate. I mean, if it's a majority mandate, there you go.
Right.
The black voters, the Latino voters, and the others that you mentioned, are they going to regret it soon?
Possibly. I think so. I don't like what I'm seeing from Trump. I didn't like what I saw with Zelensky. I didn't like what I saw with a few things. But in the end, the point, I didn't like it. But in the end, what it comes down to is this. The American people, in their eyes, it wasn't about him. They were voting against what the Democrats were throwing in their direction. I don't only talk to Cuomo. I did interview Eric Adams. I did interview Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. I interviewed these people. I've talked to them, and I'm going to talk to some more of them, too. And I'm going to say the same message. What are you doing to win? I love Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland. I love John Kerry of Pennsylvania, okay? I just interviewed Cuomo. I like him a lot. I want somebody to step up and recognize that man in the Oval Office, whether you like it or not, is potent. He's coming and he wins. You got to find a way to beat him. This way is not the way that the Democrats have been doing it.
Let's talk about how people are feeling about his performance, because a CNN poll this week found that 52% of people disapprove of Trump's performance in office so far.
CNN poll.
So even though he may have won the
It's so funny, too. They always manage to cherry pick the polls that make him look bad when almost every other poll that was taken around the same time actually shows the opposite. But when you start with a bias so deep, you have to find something that just fits the narrative. So they're just constantly used to doing that.
Where else to go but CNN, right? Like, what are they? It always makes me wonder about these polls. How do these polls work? Do they send these out online? Like, who's getting polled? Is it CNN watchers? Because of course you're going to end up with like a skewed number there, but it's always poll this and poll that.
Right.
I know there's there's certain polls that are commonly just trusted and they're understood to be pretty accurate, but I'm curious how these work in 2024. I've never really something to look into.
Yeah, well, I would always said that I'd never, been asked to do a poll or anything like that. I always wondered the same questions, and then finally, a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, it was right before the election. I got a call, and I was actually in a poll, which to me was astounding because it was less than, it's just like everything else. I said it, and like a couple days later, I got the call. So I'm wondering if my phone's listening, right? But I got, I got polled, and they asked all these questions, and the funny thing about these polls is that they word the questions so ambiguously it makes it hard to answer any of the questions. They'll ask you a double negative question, and then they'll ask you a single negative question, and then they'll ask you, I swear there was almost like triple negative questions in there as well, where it's like, I actually kept asking the poll worker, I'm like, so if I think that Trump is doing a good job, do I say yes or no? And then she would be like, you can only say yes or no. She wouldn't give me she wouldn't give me any help with that. So I'm like, I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm trying to piece together what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm still kind of lost. You're making it that way intentionally. So how much of these polls are actually accurate when you have to imagine some of the people don't even understand what they're saying yes or no to?
Or who's to say it wasn't just CNN like on X or something that just, or on Instagram, just puts out a poll and then they get
Very
like
true.
500 people to respond, and it's like a poll by CNN this week.
Right.
Why not?
Right.
Election by less than 50%, 52% disapprove of what he's doing.
Okay.
We're also seeing Republican voters at town halls opposing his executive overreach, giving Elon Musk the shadow presidency. Yet you said, quote,
what's interesting about that too is that they're speculating that a lot of those are paid actors at these local town halls, which I wouldn't put it past them. I don't know, it seems weird to me that it would be the case so early on in the presidency to have people up in arms on the right side of the aisle over stuff that Trump is doing. It seems a little bit rich to me, so I'm inclined to believe it, but we'll never know for sure. But it's definitely questionable.
Trump is closer to normal than what we're seeing on the left.
Yeah, I was talking about why he won the election.
so?
When I made that statement, I was talking about that was before the election.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
So during the election, I said in the immediate aftermath of the election, I pointed out he was voted for because they considered him closer to normal than what the Democrats were spewing. That was what I said at that particular moment in time. Now, obviously, Elon Musk is an entirely different matter altogether.
Right.
This man is not an elected official. He hasn't been confirmed by the Senate or anything, but he's got an inordinate amount of power.
Given to him by Trump.
I can understand how that could scare the living daylights out of folks and the approval ratings.
That's how
Obviously,
working
we pay
for the
attention to
executive
that.
branch
But here's
works.
the bigger question. Who on the Democratic side are the American people pointing to and saying that's the person?
We'll see.
Well,
They don't have anybody yet.
Well, we're
plenty.
6 weeks in with who.
National Voice.
Right.
We're
When was
6
the
weeks
last
in
time,
with
like-
You know who like he's Voldemort? Then go ahead.
That's ridiculous. When was the last time there was any Democrat where people were like, "Yeah, that's the one"?
Barack
Sure as hell
Obama.
wasn't Joe Biden. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair. Okay.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
it's
before
been
that,
10 years anyway, right?
right? Yeah, it's been a while
A
for
little
sure.
longer. 15, 16. Jeez.
Everybody said let him do what he's doing so we can see what's going on. So, and now people are saying, well, what are you going to do as a Democrat? Well, wait a minute now. Y'all didn't want to hear what we had to say as Democrats because that wasn't what people voted for.
true.
So now we have a clear definition, and the American people will decide how they like what he's doing because now it's affecting in a way that people were not anticipating. People who didn't think they would be affected, like the folks who work in the federal government, they never saw this coming.
And
They
people can't
never
make
saw this
omelets
coming. Sorry
anymore.
about
That's right.
people can make omelets. Everybody doesn't eat eggs. Not a fan, but I like chickens. But I'm not a fan of eggs for the mouth. Anyway, our thanks to Stephen A. Smith.
Great insight.
Be sure to